Everybody in 3D printing has heard of the Ender 3, but this is the Ender 5. So what's different, and is it any good? The Ender 3 has become firmly established as the gateway printer for new users. Listed as $210 officially, but commonly found for as low as $170 US. It's not without problems, but for that price, it's pretty hard to beat the value. So that brings us to this one, the Ender 5. So what of the other Enders? The Ender 2 is quite old now, about to be superseded. The Ender 4 is similar to this with the cube design, but it's got quite a poor reputation. And this is the newest offering, the Ender 5. To see exactly where it fits in with all the other Creality printers and to look at the value, I made this little diagram. There's a lot going on here, so allow me to explain. What this is Creality's main FDM 3D printers from the Ender 3 at $210 up to the CR10 S5 for $900 as listed on their website. I also have listed the difference in build volume for each one. You will find them cheaper by shopping around, but this is really about relative differences. The point here is that the Ender 5, although 1.5 times the price of the base Ender 3, is still one of the cheaper FDM offerings from Creality. If we take the price and divide it by the build volume, we end up with this. This gives us the number in green. The smaller the better, and the more build volume you're getting for your dollar. You can see that it's slightly better value than the Ender 3 Pro, but much better value than the next closest in price, the CR20. Now obviously there's more to it than just build volume, but it still compares well to other printers from Creality in this price range. Now you know where it fits in the wider Creality family, and especially in terms of dollars versus build volume. But realistically, most people are going to compare this to the Ender 3, so we'll start with that comparison. It's probably more appropriate to compare it to the Ender 3 Pro because it's got more shared features. Matching the Pro, it's got the certified Meanwell power supply. It's got the C-Mag removable magnetic flexible bed. It's still based on the same V-slot extrusion system. It's got the same hot end, it's got the same extruder. It's also got the same Creality 113 version mainboard with a 1284p microcontroller. And no, it still doesn't have a bootloader. That means for any modifications you might want to do, like with the Ender 3, you're going to be short on microcontroller space as well as input-output pins. But as I've shown with the Ender 3, it's possible to achieve a great deal. Between this and two earlier Ender 3s I've reviewed, this is the first model I've received with a flat bed. So it's hard to know if I'm lucky or whether Creality have upped their game in this department. So what's different between this and the Ender 3? Well, firstly, it's got that added 50mm of Z build volume. It might have the same V-slot extrusion system, but the arrangement is quite different. In this model, there's an overhead gantry that changes both for X and Y, and this bed only moves up and down in the Z direction. On paper at least, this should mean a more rigid frame and less wobbling of the print, which would help with adhesion, as well as getting rid of some artifacts on tall objects, such as lithophanes. It does have the same extruder, but the mount for the filament is directly underneath it, so we have a straight line coming up to the extruder, and in my opinion, that makes it far easier to handle. From what I've read, there was a problem with early Ender 5s, and that's that as soon as you turned off the power, gravity would make the bed drop to the bottom, which means power loss recovery was pretty much a waste of time. On this model I've tested, they seem to have made an improvement by adding an anti-backlash mechanism. You can still push it down manually, but it's not going to happen by itself from gravity anymore. I had a genuine power out, and when I tested the power out recovery, it started printing at the beginning of the first layer again. I've tested this on other Creality printers and it did work, so I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt here. One other subtle little thing that I really like is this screw up the back here to adjust your homing height. Imagine the scenario where you've got everything level, but your nozzle is too far away. Instead of having to turn all four, you simply make one adjustment and the whole lot can come up or down from that position. Let's have a look at the unboxing and assembly of this printer. For some reason I was expecting it to take longer than the Ender 3 to put together, but the good news was it was extremely simple to do, probably even easier than the Ender 3. All of the tools that I needed were provided, and I had the whole thing together and printing in about half an hour. I leveled the bed by moving it around manually, but there is a menu option to help you find the corners and the center for this process. The printer came with a set of tools, some spares, and a really outstanding instruction manual. This is by far the best instruction manual I've ever used to put together a Chinese 3D printer. Beyond the assembly, it also had tips for loading filament, bed leveling, even troubleshooting, and a circuit wiring diagram for the main board. There's instructions for accessing Cura and INI files on the SD card as well. That brought me to my first print, and it's this dog that was on the SD card. I snapped the head off, but it was completely my fault. As it started to print, the base was quite enormous and it was taking quite a few hours to complete that much. Fearing I would run out of the PLA that came on the sample spool with the printer, I switched halfway through to ABS to see if it would adhere. It mostly did, but I still didn't have the temperature high enough for the layers to stick to each other strongly. So the result is this decapitated dog, but apart from that, the print quality looks pretty decent. Now the rest of the prints I did here, I did with my simplified 3D Ender 3 profile with the Z height up to match this Ender 5. This works flawlessly, but with a quirk. You can see this G code, the gamepad is facing the front corner, but as it prints, it comes off facing the rear. All that means is that everything that you print will be rotated 180 degrees from how you see it on your slicing software. I started off by testing tolerance, and to do that, I use this Make Anything Lock Puzzle number 10. Now you can see I have 3 versions here. The first one I did on my Ender 3 just to set a baseline. It's designed to print in place, this one's separated nicely, and the puzzle works as intended. This version here is the one done on the Ender 5, and I'm pleased to report it works exactly the same way. Print quality also remained quite good. This final one was done on the AlphaWise U30, still under review, and unfortunately it's all welded shut, and I've had about 3 goes of that with always the same result. Next up, I wanted to explore that extra build volume. So we have this spiral vase, and this one is scaled up to be 250 mils like you get on the standard Ender 3, and this is the difference that the extra 50 millimeters makes. This one is scaled up to 300 millimeters, and once again, it printed quite well. Extrusion seems quite consistent. There is a very slight salmon skin effect on the outside. Next, I wanted to do something really pretty and something that would take overnight to print. So I made this stag root out of X3D gold PLA. This printer has a slightly longer Bowden tube than the Ender 3, so I could tune the retraction a little bit more, but apart from that, this thing looks absolutely beautiful. My last print from PLA was this gamepad controller for the Max the Megapod project that I'm currently making. This one also turned out really nice. There's no warping and all the parts fit together perfectly. Next up, I turned my attention to PETG, and I wanted to do another mechanism since the printer was doing so well with those so far. This geared pencil holder was a fun print and completed once again without failure. The PETG also stuck perfectly to the magnetic bed, but peeled off easily when I wanted it to. Finally, I turned my attention to TPU, and this X3D TPU is 85A Shore hardness. I loaded up this little owl with only 5% infill, and it printed pretty flawlessly apart from a little bit of stringing on top of the ears. Once again, you can see some really light salmon skin effect, but I think some TL smoothers would sort that out pretty comfortably, and the extrusion is really even and nice otherwise. So that was my printing experience. It's time for the pros and cons, and the biggest pro by far is the print quality and consistency of this printer. It managed to print everything I threw at it without a single failed print. Remember, this printer is completely stock, and I was using a profile for another printer without tweaking it at all. The few issues I had with stringing, I'm pretty confident I'll be able to dial those out with just a little bit of work. Another bonus is definitely the additional build volume. They listed as 220 by 220, but like the Ender 3, you can get about 234, 235 millimeters on the base, and all the way up to 300 for this model here. The ease of assembly and the instructions was top notch, the best that I've experienced from a Creality product so far. The more rigid frame is definitely a welcome addition, and it should mean things like leveling the bed don't need to happen anywhere near as often. I found this printer a little bit more convenient to use than some of its rivals. The on-off switch is at the front, the SD card, the USB slot, all at the front, easy to access near the control panel as well. Although there's not too many Ender 5s in the wild, you'll find that most of the upgrade parts for Ender 3s will be compatible with these as well. That includes things like the hot end, the extruder, cooling fan ducts, adding auto bed leveling. Any guide that you find for Ender 3 is most likely going to apply very similarly for this printer. Now onto the cons. Creality's website has firmware downloads for most of their printers now, but the Ender 5 is still missing. They recently released an updated Ender 3 firmware with thermal runaway protection, so I had high hopes for this one, but disappointingly I found it was not enabled. In fact, this version of Marlin is based on a branch from 2015. The good news is I'll be doing an upgrade video for this printer, and in that I'll compile the latest version of Marlin compatible with the Ender 5. Probably the final downside is with this magnetic bed, it's meant to have a limit of 80 degrees and therefore you won't be able to print ABS. In summary, I would say this unit that I've reviewed here was very consistent, very user-friendly, and has great print quality. The question is, do you want to spend the extra over the Ender 3? If you're looking for a budget model to start your journey in 3D printing, I'd probably still recommend the base Ender 3. But if you were considering spending a little bit more money, perhaps on an Ender 3 Pro, I would suggest that you save a little bit more and shoot for this one here. You definitely won't be disappointed. Objectively, I'm comfortable saying that there's a lot of upgrades compared to the Ender 3 on this printer. I can't really see any downsides, so really it comes down to whether you want to spend the extra money over that model. That brings us to the end of this review. Please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy 3D printing. G'day, it's Michael again. If you liked the video, then please click like. If you want to see more content like this in future, click subscribe and make sure you click on the bell to receive every notification. If you really want to support the channel and see exclusive content, become a patron. Visit my Patreon page. See you next time.